Mercedes-Benz M112 and M113 engines, fan clutch removal. Check the pinned comment for the timestamps. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use some rental tools or even a tool that you can make at home if you're stuck trying to get this fan clutch off. Here's the fan clutch right in here. You can see it's coming off of the water pump pulley there. That big nut is a 36mm nut. I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do this depending on your tools and your situation. Now this nut for the fan clutch on this Mercedes is a typical thread, right hand thread, so we will be turning counterclockwise to loosen it. That's not the case with all fan clutches, but it will be how we'll do it here on this Mercedes. So as you're facing it, we're going to be turning towards the passenger side. The first thing we're going to do is remove this dipstick. It's real easy to accidentally break this dipstick while you're working in this area with a big old long wrench. We're going to get into how to obtain some rental tools or tools in general for this in a second, but I want to show you first, if you already have your 36 and you're watching this video, how you might try to do this. Always try this method first because sometimes it works and you don't have to mess with holding the pulley. Sometimes it doesn't work. A lot of times it doesn't work. I've never actually had it work using this little short wrench and the pipe that I'm going to put on here, but I've had it work plenty of times using the regular thin wrench, as long as it fits well, the ones that are real long, and then smacking the back of the side of it. So we're going to smack this so that we're turning counterclockwise. That's going to be this way towards the passenger side, and I'm just going to move the pulley back a little bit so I've got a little better grip there. I'm just going to give this a good whack. Here we go. Did not loosen it. I'm going to try it again. And that did not loosen it. I'm going to try it again. That still has not loosened it. I'll go one more time. And that has not loosened it. So we're going to have to move to plan B, which is what I was expecting. And plan B is to use a tool to hold the pulley and then use this wrench to loosen the nut. One last note on this method, the other reason why you want to try to do this is because if your wrench and your setup works well enough to remove it this way, it works well enough to install it this way. So you can use the same method we just did, just knocking in the clockwise direction when it's time to install it. If this worked for you, I'll put up a timestamp, jump to that part of the video, and I'll show you the fan removal and then switching out the fan clutch. If this didn't work for you, stay tuned. We'll go to tools next, and then I'll show you how to use the different tools to hold the pulley. Alright, so let's talk about some tools. We'll go through a couple kits here that you might be able to find at your auto parts store, but I do want to mention the JTC water pump pulley and 36mm wrench are really, really good. They're excellent. They're expensive though, so if you can get that, that's a big problem solver. If you're at your wit's end and you have got to get this fan clutch out, go with the JTC or some version like it because that's a great kit. If you want to try to use what you can as rentals from the auto parts store, this is from Advanced Auto. It's Powerbuilt Kit 34 fan clutch wrench kit, and I think it's 648746. If you get this kit, it's really only going to do it's really only going to do any good if it's brand new, because these wrenches widen out. They actually threw this one in there from another kit because I told them I was looking for a 36 and I figured they'd all be wide. These are all real wide. Real wide. They're not anywhere near 36mm. And that's usually how it goes with these kits. So let's measure this. Alright, basically 39 at the end. And back here, still 37, almost 38. So this thing is really wide. The 36 that comes in this is a double end, and I'll show you it down here, and I'll also mention what these are. Unfortunately, none of these work on the application we're using, but you can see it's a nice wrench. It's really long, but it's super wide here. You can even see just looking at it that the two jaws are not parallel because this got so warped up here. So it's not really 36. This is closer to 39. What this is the four bolts on the water pump pulley that fasten it to the water pump. If you can find one of these squares that fits those, which I think is a 49 or a 52 millimeter, then you can hold the pulley with this. If you can find a good 36 to put on this side, and then you can break it free like that. The problem is I've never seen in any of these kits one of these square ones that will work for a Mercedes. They're always just a little too small or just a little too big. Like this 58 millimeters, that's too big. What I'm saying is, let's pretend that this square one is tighter and it would fit these. You would slip it on like that, and it would go around all 4 of the water pump pulley bolts, and then you could use this to hold the pulley and put your wrench on the nut and loosen the nut. Like I said, the problem is that all of these are just too big for this pattern on the water pump pulley. So from this kit, you would want to grab this 36 millimeter if it's actually 36 millimeter. Here's a real 36. This is my Harbor Freight service wrench. It's great, but it's obviously short and it's real wide here, so it's harder to access it, but it is 36. And you can see here, if we compare the jaws, I guess I should go this way. Look at that. See that? It's really wide. So that's why they really work well if they're brand new, but it doesn't take a whole lot of uses, it seems, to widen them out. Maybe you'll get lucky and you'll find a new one though. But if you're really in a bind and you just have to use what you have on hand, it's the best you can get, and it's wide open like this one, 38, 39 millimeters, then try to shim it. So you can use a washer, you can use depending on how much you need to take up, you might be able to use a dime. You might have to cut the dime in half to just fit it in here, because you see where you're going to have to fit it. I like pipe strap here. You do, for this application, you have to cut it, thin it out. But the reason I like this is because you could fold it and make it thicker, and you can actually make it into sort of a triangular shape to pick up some of that so that you can get closer to some sort of parallel between the jaws. And so if you're doing that, like let's pretend this is a well-sized shim, you're going to put it in here, and then you're going to reach around and slip it on the flat side of the bolt, and then keep your wrench like that, and keep doing it until you don't have a whole lot of walk. It might take a little while, and it's useful to have like a pliers to reach in there and whatnot, but if you're really in a bind and you have to use, that's stuck in there. There we go. If you're really in a bind and you have to use a suboptimal wrench, then shimming it is always something you might want to try. Another one you might see at the auto parts store, this one is from AutoZone. It's OEM Tools 27141, 5-piece fan clutch wrench set. Unfortunately, none of these work in this application in any way. They're all too big. So I wouldn't even get this one. We need now something to hold the pulley, since our first impact technique of hitting it with the hammer didn't work. And that's where this comes in. Now this was pretty cool when I first saw it. OEM Tools Universal Fan Clutch Pulley Holder 57270. As you can see, it looks like it's practically brand new. Probably only been rented out a couple times. And when I saw this, I said, wow, that is cool. Look at how robust it is. I mean, it's thick, it's got a good weight to it. It's got, down here you can see it's got the open ends, so you can get around the water pump fasteners and keep them in place on real tight applications. It's got these as well, where you can take the fasteners out, run the fasteners back through, and attach right to a pulley, or you can just take your own bolt and nut and run it through and make some pins here. It's got 2 different sizes. It's got the offset, it's thick, and it's got the ratcheting mechanism here for the open end. And I thought, wow, this is pretty neat. And then I started looking at it a little bit more closely, and look at how tiny these teeth are here. Oh my gosh, they're so small. Those are going to get stripped. So I would anticipate, if they're not already, kind of a little bit already, if you are trying to use this tool, try to see if they have one that's pretty much brand new. The good news is, though, that just because those teeth strip, that's not going to render the tool useless, because Those are primarily, well, really only useful for the open end here, because when you're leaving the fasteners in and you're putting these hooks around the fasteners, that's when you need this ratcheting mechanism to kind of keep this the same. But if I was using these here, I would use it like a regular style sprocket wrench, and so I would just zip tie this right here so it's not even touching that, because you're going to need to line these bolts up exactly wherever on your diagonals, or you might have to do the adjacent bolts. Wherever they happen to be on the pump that you're working on, but you're not going to need the ratcheting mechanism for that. And then in that case, it's nice because it's still, like I say, it has that offset. It's super long. So it's still a good tool, I think, especially for those, but this is just kind of the bonus feature, I guess. And it does require that ratcheting mechanism that's gonna get stripped. Looks, I mean, the good news is, though, it'll be easy to replace. So hopefully they'll make a repair kit. Just a little circlip snap ring there. Or no, that's a little E-clip. No, there's the snap ring I was looking at. There's a little E-clip there. It would be just pop that out, take the pin out there, put the new one in. And it does look like they made this from a weaker steel than this part, so this will be the disposable part. So hopefully it will be reparable. So if this is part of your rental plan, try to talk to the guys at AutoZone and see if you can get the newest one they have on their shelf. One other thing I'd mention, though, if somebody gave me this tool and the ratcheting mechanism was all messed up and they said, you have to use this, make it happen, what I would do with this is, if I could not get pins in here, if I could not put these through the holes on the pulley, if I had to use this open end, what I would do is I would put a zip tie on this to keep it open like that so the teeth aren't interfering. Then I would open it up to exactly where it needs to be to get around the two bolts that I'm going, whether they're the diagonal bolts or the adjacent bolts. And then I would go from here to here and here to here, back and forth with thin wire, dental floss, fishing line, whatever I have, back and forth to make it strong enough to prevent this from opening, because that's what this ratcheting mechanism is doing. It's just preventing it from opening. But I can tell you that just looks like that's going to be stripping. That looks like that's going to be a failure point there. So the tool still has value, even if that's stripped. And like I said, if somebody said make it happen, I would be running through here or here, depending on the clearances. And I would hold this jaw, I'd hold the open end jaws in exactly the right place with wire, and then I would use it. And I think that would work. What I'll probably end up using is my homemade pulley holder here. This is a cam sprocket holder that I made a few years ago. I was really in a bind, and I had to hold a cam sprocket, and so I just made this from some pieces of filing cabinet that I was scrapping. You can see it's not very fancy. And then these, I normally have those nuts there. I just loosened them. I know those nuts there to run through the open holes on a sprocket, and it works really well. But what I can do for this job is I don't need these, because I don't need these as pins. I can just use these holes and get those. Well, I can remove the fasteners on the water pump pulley, run them back through this, and then I can hold the pulley. And then the other nice thing about this is I made it reducible, so I can get it half the width if I don't need all that strength. So, and I shouldn't need that much strength. We'll find out here on this water pump pulley. But now I'm in slim mode, and I can get into tighter spaces, see? So how this will work is I'll just take the fastener out on the water pump, run it back through here, take the other one out, run it back through here, and it'll depend. We'll have to see what kind of room we have when we get in there. I'll either do it adjacent bolts, or I'll do it on the diagonal bolts. And this is what I was saying about, this just being a regular deal like that right there. If I would use that for this purpose, I would just zip tie that ratcheting mechanism out, because they're just the same right here. It doesn't have that. Take off that open end, and it's just the same. So it's very simple, easy to design it. Just get 2 bars. Depending on how thick you want it. You have a bar here, and then this bar, if you have a real long bar, you just cut it down. What is this, maybe a foot? What is this, maybe 7 inches? and then just drill a hole. If it doesn't have a hole, drill a hole here for your pivot point, and make sure that you do have that alignment at the end. And then I like having this hole down here because I can use this to lock it out on things. But yeah, if you can't find any other pulley holder, this is always an option. You can always make your own. Pretty straightforward. So let's give this green thing a shot. I'm going to set the ratcheting mechanism right there. Did a few trials if you want to count those teeth. This is the best I can do, although the teeth are very fine. They're very far from the end of the tool, so a fine tooth adjustment brings it a little too tight, and I can't get on the fasteners. And yet where it is here, it's just a little loose, as you can see. But if I can get it on here and turn the pulley like you see there, I know that it's at least got some grip. So what I'm going to do is hold the other end of this, and I'm going to slip my tight 36 on here, put a pipe on the other end, and see if I can turn this. Now, if you have an extra set of hands, you can have somebody hold the pulley, holder for you, because then you can tap this with your wrench on here. You can give it a good tap, and with the pulley holder holding the pulley, there's a pretty good chance of tapping on this. Even possibly with a wrench that's a little wide open, might get you loosened. So let me get that back on there. I just lost my grip. Okay. Nope, not quite. See, it's not grabbing as well as I would like to, but we'll see if we can make it happen. Okay, here we go. It feels like it wants to go. I wish I could get this green tool a little tighter, but I just can't. So I'm going to try to get back on there again. And then back on my wrench. There it is. All right. So it is possible to do it with this green tool. You can see I've got a pretty long pipe that I slipped on the end of my Harbor Freight 36mm service wrench. But it was able to work, and as you saw, even though that's a thick wrench, it fit in there with that particular pulley holder. So once you have it loosened, it'll just spin right off. Just hold it so you don't drop it. You don't want to spin it fast because you might drop it and then damage the fan blade and have to get a new fan. There it is. Okay, and now let's kind of wiggle our way out of here. And there's our fan. So here's our fan. A couple things to notice on the fan is there is a mark that says front. There it is there. It says front. Also notice that the fan blades are not evenly spaced. You can see, especially right here, that these two blades are closer together than these two blades. That's not a defect. That's part of the design. I'm not sure exactly why they do it. I think it's for acoustics. But don't be upset if yours is like that. All the fans are going to be like that. The back of the fan clutch, as we know, is this big nut which faces in the engine because that goes to the water pump pulley. So there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with this fan clutch. I just wanted to show you how to remove it. So we're going to remove this fastener, that fastener, and that one to replace it. And it looks like those are 5mm. Yes, those are 5mm. Might be a little tight because it is doing a lot of spinning. Let's see if I can get it if I hold it on my lap here. Oh, there we go. And we'll just loosen each of them. And this one here. And with those 3 fasteners removed, we can just pop that fan clutch right out the back. Put that down. I'm going to keep it facing front up like that. Again, it is labeled if you accidentally get it mixed up. Here's some part numbers. So to put this back together, you grab your new fan clutch, or in my case the same old one, and make sure you're looking at front side there, or my thumb, you can see front. Bring it in right like this, line those holes up, and just slip these fasteners back in. Torque on these fasteners is low. It's just 10 Newton meters or about 88 inch-pounds. If you're not using a torque wrench, you're just not going to go too crazy on them. There it is. With those 3 fasteners in, this is ready to go back in. I'll see if I can work around the camera here. We're just going to thread this on, and it should be real easy to turn until it gets to the point that it stops. Just spinning the fan. And then when it starts turning there we go. When this nut stops turning and the fan is still turning, that's when it's time to grab our pulley holder and our wrench. I'm going to give this OEM Tools pulley holder a shot to see if that'll work for tightening it. I move the camera over to this side. You can see the radiator hose there. And I'm going to be tightening this, turning clockwise. So I'm going to go ahead and use the pulley holder to move the pulley this way with the wrench, and hopefully that'll give me enough room that I will be able to not hit the camera. Alright, so you won't be able to see it, but I've got this is the wrench one with that blue. Let's see if I can tighten this without the OEM tool, the green tool, turning. Here we go. Oh yeah, it's holding it really well. Oh yeah, I got a great grip on that. Okay, sweet. So that's on there plenty tight. So there's my setup there. You see I got a pretty long pipe, and there's the green tool. So I'm working over in this area, and I'm just opposing that clockwise motion with the green tool, and then turning my 36 clockwise to tighten up that nut. I'll give you another little demo here. Yeah, it grabs on really well. Yeah, that'll definitely work. So I can recommend this green tool, but you have to get it on just the right way. Now we're going to do a little experiment because I want to see if this will work. So I locked out the little ratcheting mechanism with the zip tie. It's not touching there. And then as you can see, I've got wire wrapped around there. When I first did it, I went from this hole to here, but then I ended up running out of space, so I moved it up here. And there I just doubled the length of wire and made a loop right there. And then I went in here to get the sizing right. I do have to be on the adjacent bolts, which again is not ideal, but it worked. It worked with the regular format, so it should work like this. So I got these on right where they need to be, and then I went around with the wire once and kind of held my hand with it, and then slipped it out, and then wrapped it as much as I could around there. So let's give this a shot. I am on the adjacent bolts there with the wire. Give this a test. Let's see if this will work to loosen. I don't really like being on these adjacent bolts, but I find that I'm kind of running out of real estate with this pulley holder if I don't do that. So let's see if it'll be enough. Here we go. It does feel like it's holding it okay. Oh, there it is. Alright, sweet. So, if you get the old one of the green tool and it's all messed up, lock out your little ratcheting mechanism and use the wire. So let's see if we can use this to tighten this. Alright, here we go. Get on this. Feels like it's fitting pretty well. Grab my wrench. Going over here, and we're going to be tightening. Okay, let me make sure I'm not interfering with my wrench. Here we go. Let's tighten. Oh yeah, it's got plenty of grip. Yep, that'll do it. That pulley holder is on there just fine. Alright. Nice, so this will work. You might need some wire in case you get an old one, but this will do the trick. So you saw that the pulley holder will work using these on the bolts as is. I'm going to show you how you would do it if your ratcheting mechanism is out or these are just slipping too much, because let's say your bolts are rounded. We'll use these holes here. So to get a place to put that, we'll have to remove a couple of these fasteners. These are 10mm. Not a ton of room to work in here, but you just want to loosen those and remove them. These are pretty short, so we might actually have to get longer fasteners. Let's see. On second thought, go ahead and give this a try on your own if you think that's gonna work for you, to line up these holes with the bolt holes that we just removed. This looks like I might actually need a longer bolt to make that happen. So I'm not going to search out a longer bolt for that. I'm just going to go ahead and show you with my little pulley holder, since it's the same idea and it'll be easier for me to do it, easier for you to see. This is not going to be easy to get this fastener in because there's not a lot of room, but you'll see that it can be done. Let's try that again with some pliers. Alright. Not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it can be done. I'll leave that a little bit loose and get my second one placed. And for my second one, I am going to go opposite. So let me get my wrench and turn this. You can see I just turned the pulley so I can get access to this fastener. And take that out and put my pulley holder there. So my pulley holder is going to be going on the diagonal holes. So there's my pulley holder installed, my homemade pulley holder. And after installing this, I don't know if you'd be able to get this on because this is so thick. Look how much thicker it is. And you saw how difficult it was to get the little fasteners in. And ideally, you'd want to use a longer fastener so you have a little bit more threading into the water pump there. So I don't know if this would work. If you try it, leave it a comment in the comment section to let us know whether it worked, if you use longer fasteners and all. But I'll just go ahead and show you that this does work great if you just make your own little pulley holder like my little homemade one here. We can easily get this off now. This will hold it real steady. And now I'll have to make a slight backtrack here and change from this hole to that hole, so I'm not on the diagonal holes. I have to be on the adjacent holes, and the reason is because I don't have a thin wrench, and so I can't get this wrench on here with the pulley pushing that bolt out there. So I'm just gonna undo that and move over here. If you have a thin wrench though, you'd be able to fit a thin wrench in there. So I would leave it on the diagonal if you can, but I'm gonna just move it over there. So I'm gonna move from that hole over to this one. Where is that? Down a little bit, right there. Okay. Alright, now you can see I'm over on that one, and not the diagonals anymore. And again, that's just because I'm using this thicker wrench. If you can use the diagonals, I think that's probably better. Over here, I want to put this piece of wood down in here so that I could lock the, notice the other end of my little pulley tool. Looks like it's just long enough to reach this. But I'll put this here on the frame, make sure I'm not going to smush anything. And then turn this down until it locks out on that. Alright, so let's see if I can get my wrench on there now. Okay, get my pipe on the other end here. Radiator hose is in my way a little bit, but I think I can just sneak around it. And I have there. Alright, let me make sure I don't run into the fan blade because I'm not perfectly on here as well as I'd like to. If you've got a thin wrench, you'll have more room to work with, and you can always just use the pulley holder to hold the pulley and then hit the other end of the thin wrench with a hammer to see if that'll break you free. But I'll do this just without impact. I'll just do it by pushing and see how this works here. Ooh. There we go. Okay. So that did it. As you can see, the pulley holder held that pulley quite well. So worst case scenario, make a homemade pulley holder Now I want to use that homemade pulley holder to hold the pulley while we tighten this. So I just, from when you last saw it, I just flipped it upside down. So I undid the fasteners, flipped the tool upside down, and put it back in. And the reason for that is I just wanted to have this arrangement over here be a certain length. And so there's a hole at the end of this bar for the pulley holder. I've got a fastener through there, and then that's just onto a chain. The chain is looped around that part of the frame, and so I can pull on this and nothing's going to move because the frame's locking it out. And that means I can use both hands over here with the wrench. So let's give that a shot. I got the pulley holder locked out. All right. Got my pipe. Now we'll go ahead and tighten this up. Very nice. All right. So the homemade pulley holder works great. If you don't have any other pulley holding solutions, if you need it, it does work well. Once you're satisfied you've got that fan on well, make sure you've got all of your 4 fasteners on the water pump pulley if you took any out. And you put this dipstick back in and start her up. Alright there, so it looks good. So I hope this video was helpful for you on your fan clutch job. If you're also doing the water pump, check the channel. I have a video up about the full water pump replacement and some other videos about these 112 and 113 engines. So thank you for watching and good luck with your repair.